Hello everyone, my name is Alan Castañeda and this video is for our ESC 502 class. I first wanted to start by saying how important this foundations class is for our development as teachers. Learning where and how education started in our country and also abroad is very important. It teaches us what direction education is heading to and in its good points and its bad points. The three articles that I picked are very interesting, very dear to me as well. As my undergraduate degree was in bilingual education at the City College of New York. The first article deals, the title is Charter Schools versus Traditional Public Schools, which one is underperforming? Well, there's always been that dilemma of which is better, charter schools or public schools. Charter schools have become the modern rival of public schools. But does that reality of charter school performing really match the hype that people proclaim it to be? There have been numerous studies that confirm that their achievement is indistinguishable from that of traditional public schools. I myself am a pro public school person. When I become a teacher, I want to teach in a public school. I currently work in a public school, a bilingual education school. They offer 50-50 bilingual education, emergent. I find that public schools, if they provided more resources and gave more adequate training for their teachers, they would really outperform many other schools. The thing with charter schools is that they get to kind of like select the students that go there. They tend to pick like the best students, and those students who are in impoverished neighborhoods really don't really have a chance to flourish, in a lot of those schools, because of the fact that they don't have that opportunity to get into them. My second article has to deal with, the title is To Serve Diverse Students, School Districts Try to Help Minorities Earn Teaching Licenses. This is important because in certain communities, the ratio of teachers of colors, right? Well, let me rephrase that. In a lot of schools, and especially in areas not so much like where we are from Northeast, let's say Minnesota, their ratio of students who are of color, 51%, it's really outmatched. Well, not outmatched. Compared to that of teachers of colors, it's only really like 5%. So how can we say that our students are relating to the teachers, even though, yes, teachers learn how to become teachers through time and become efficient with many years of practice. But how can, it's like almost like you hear this thing with like police officers, how can a one-sided ethnicity police force, let's say police a dominant minority community, right? It's how do you relate? Well, this article talks about how in Minneapolis also they're developing scholarships and programs to help develop minority students to become teachers. One of the claims that they say that it makes it so difficult to do this is that there are less minority people in going to university, so recruiting them is quite difficult. But one of the programs that the DOE has in New York City is called Bilingual Pupil Service. I had graduated last semester from this program, and the amount of training that they give you is enormous. The professional development training, the support is phenomenal. And of course, bilingual education in New York City is a super high needs area, and it's a federal program, and I see the necessity of that, and the experience you get. It's just, you can't really put a price on that. So I could see how if they made more of these programs, it could really help minority students become excellent teachers. My third article, right, treating language is about, well, the title is Treating Language as a Strength, the Benefits of Bilingualism. Studies have shown that there are many cognitive benefits for students learning to become bilingual students. A lot of people would say that, well, some people would say that bilingual education students really don't come with anything. I would be the first one to argue that. How can we teach students to value a culture or the culture that we're in if we don't validate their background knowledge or their background experience? Of course they come with something. They come from what they learned from their home country. If you help develop that, if you help nourish that and acknowledge that, they would be more receptive to wanting to learn and assimilate into the new culture they're into, in this new society, in this language. Many other studies have said that young children also, when children are learning to become, let's say, learning a language, they are from birth until about, like, right before they go to, they say, start preschool. That's when their brain receptors are in the most are in their largest amount, and this is where they make that connection. So if a bilingual student is very versed or had received a solid foundation in their home language, they could easily be able to transfer that over through a period of time. They usually say between about 6 years. If they study a second language while reinforcing their native language, what they learn in their native language, they're able to transfer over into their new target language in which they wanted to adopt. I myself work in a really wonderful school in Washington Heights, which is called Dos Puentes. It's a public school. They teach 50-50. 50% of the time is in Spanish, and 50% of the time are in English. The wonderful part about this school is the diversity of students. We have all kinds of different students. We have Anglo-Saxon students, we have Spanish students, we have African American students, and the parents, the reason why they want them in these schools is because they know in the future, and even now, the importance of bilingual education, by being bilingual and biliterate, how in the future their children are going to be having such an advantage rather than just being monolingual. Now, I know I probably might have a bias because that was my undergraduate major, but the studies have shown that students who learn two languages, right, develop better cognitively because they see the world from multiple perspectives. So imagine an engineer trying to solve something, looks at it from a point of view of one language, let's say for instance Spanish, and then they see it from English. They're seeing it from two perspectives, and they could be able to solve these problems and be more articulate because, of course, like again, they've seen it from multiple perspectives. Another point that I wanted to talk about is, well, in reading and looking at different videos from my other classmates, I kind of agree with several of my classmates. I like what Kellyanne said about student teaching and student teachers and news teachers, right? should have more opportunities to practice teaching, right? It is true, right, that most of the practice that we get in student teaching is observing. How do we really become teachers if what we do is observe and we get only like 6 months of student teaching? And then they want us to be able to create an ETPA video and perform like a teacher. Does not kind of make sense. It does not make sense. Maybe more of those observing hours should be more dedicated to actual hands-on practicing. The opportunity should be there. So I know, I mean, I totally felt that when Kellyanne made that statement, she was right on target. She was on the money with that. I also agree with Guy, and I like his point of view of what he said, that, you know, how do we compare teachers from urban, suburban, and rural areas? Is it just based on test scores, or are there other variables in play? That's a good point. That'll be like a really interesting study to do, and we could definitely learn a lot from that. Also, Misty, she was talking about emerging bilingual education. Why aren't there more emerging bilingual education schools? And that is, I think, primarily because there aren't enough information about it, meaning that public schools have to provide bilingual education to students who do not perform well in their exams, entering once they're identified as a bilingual education students. Also, if parents ask that their students could be put in bilingual education classes, then they have to be put. Now, if the parents don't make any decision, they go to a default mode, and that's not like fair. Then they don't really get these opportunities. They're not really told about the different type of like classroom settings, and yeah, they get a little supposedly mini workshop, but a lot of parents, you know, this is a working community. New York City is not. Everybody has to like work. Everybody has to. It's moving. The city never sleeps, right? Basically, most people hardly ever sleep because they're worried about having to go to work. Yes, you know, their children are of their most importance of their lives. There's a lot of variables. I think the information has to be given, has to be provided, so that parents can make these very so important decisions. So thank you for the time, and I really enjoyed this class, and I'm really looking forward to it. The technology part is awesome, but I've been having difficulties trying to get connected, and had problems with my password, but I'm getting there, and I know it's just going to help me become a better teacher. And thank you guys. Thank you, Professor. Talk to you guys in class.